For my second pregnancy, my husband, Ethan, insisted I deliver at Sterling Heights Medical Center, the most exclusive private hospital in New York City. He said only the best would do for me and our child, that he was haunted by the trauma of my first difficult delivery. But as I lay on the examination table for a routine ultrasound, Dr. Miller, the head of obstetrics and Ethan's best friend, looked at me with an expression of profound pity. He discreetly made a lightning-fast call, his voice trembling. "Get the police. Now. Her husband's family is planning." In that instant, I knew the heaven I was living in was merely an exquisitely decorated hell. My name is Sarah, and I've just turned 30. Looking back, I always considered myself the luckiest woman in the world. I had a husband who loved me beyond measure, Ethan. He wasn't just a talented, successful architect, he was a true family man. In our 5 years of marriage, he had never once raised his voice or caused me a moment of distress. He shouldered every responsibility, big or small, always telling me, "Your only job is to be happy and live joyfully. Let me handle all the storms outside." We had our first son, Leo, who just turned 4. He was my reason for living, the bond that made our love even stronger. But my happiness wasn't perfect. From birth, Leo wasn't as healthy as other children. He was frail, with pale skin, and spent a few days in the hospital almost every month with minor illnesses. Watching him cough violently or his little body go limp with fever felt like someone was squeezing my heart. Perhaps that's why, when I became pregnant with our second child, everyone, especially Ethan, became exponentially more cautious. The moment the pregnancy test showed 2 bright pink lines, Ethan wrapped me in his arms, crying with joy. He knelt, pressing his ear against my still flat stomach, whispering words of love. He said God had taken pity on our family, blessing us with another little angel. He promised that this time he wouldn't let me suffer any hardship or risk. When I gave birth to Leo, I endured an incredibly difficult labor. I suffered a postpartum hemorrhage and nearly died. The memory of those agonizing hours fighting for my life in a public hospital had become a horrifying obsession for Ethan. He constantly blamed himself, saying if only he'd been better off then, if only he'd chosen a better place for me, I wouldn't have had to suffer. And perhaps because of that guilt, he was determined to make up for it this time. He announced to me and our families, "Sarah will give birth at Sterling Heights. I've done the research. It has the most advanced technology and the best doctors in the city. I'll cover all the costs." I was both touched and hesitant. I knew the costs there were astronomical, enough to be a small fortune for a normal family. "Ethan," I said softly, "is that really necessary? NYU Langone is a great hospital too. I just need you by my side." Ethan squeezed my hand, his gaze firm with a resolve I'd never seen before. "No, Sarah. This time, you have to listen to me. I can't let you or our baby face any more danger. Don't worry about the money. The reason I work so hard is to keep you and our children safe and comfortable." My mother-in-law, Eleanor, who rarely interfered in our decisions, voiced her support with unusual enthusiasm. "Ethan is right," she said, nodding emphatically. "Your health and the baby's health are the most important things. Money can be earned back, but if something happens to you, no amount of money can buy you back. I think it's right for Ethan to be so thorough this time. Seeing you in the emergency room when you had Leo felt like my heart was being ripped out. This time, we must choose the best, safest place." Her fervent support eased my guilt. I simply thought that after my difficult first birth, she had genuinely grown to worry about and care for me more. Yet, certain small things still stirred a vague, unexplainable unease within me. It was the way Eleanor looked at Leo. No one could deny she loved her grandson. But that love sometimes felt extreme, excessive. She doted on him to the point where she would barely let anyone else, including me, touch him. She would often sigh and mutter to herself, "My poor grandchild, why is his fate so cruel? If only he were healthy like other children." And ever since she learned I was pregnant again, she began making cryptic remarks. She would hold my hand and whisper, "Sarah, my dear, you must try to eat well and take care of yourself this time. You have to give Leo a strong, healthy sibling. With a sibling, his life will be more blessed. Someone will be there to shoulder his burdens." I found her words a little strange. How could a baby shoulder another child's burdens? But I reassured myself, thinking it was just the profound way older people think, hoping the siblings would grow up to be close and supportive of each other. Ethan's behavior also grew peculiar. He was more attentive, true, but his attention sometimes felt suffocating. He controlled my diet with an iron fist, personally selecting every meal and forcing me to take a variety of supplements he bought. He claimed it was all to ensure the baby would be born intelligent and healthy. But one time, I saw him about to mix a strange, unlabeled powder into my glass of milk. When I asked what it was, he flinched, quickly hiding it away with a strained smile. "Oh, nothing. I just grabbed my headache powder by mistake." His awkwardness didn't escape me. My pregnancy passed in this state of mixed happiness and indescribable anxiety. I was happy because of my husband's devoted care, but uneasy because of the strange behavior of both him and his mother-in-law. I tried to dismiss these fleeting thoughts, telling myself I was just being overly sensitive due to hormonal changes. I placed my complete trust in my husband, in the family I had chosen. I counted down the days until I could hold my second child in my arms, hoping their arrival would dispel all shadows and bring complete joy to our family. I never imagined that the day I arrived at Sterling Heights, the place my husband called the safest in the world, would be the day I stepped through the gates of hell, where the most horrifying truths were only beginning to be unveiled. Sterling Heights Medical Center rose before me, as grand and imposing as a glass palace. Every architectural detail, from the fountain in the grand lobby to the enormous crystal chandeliers, exuded a breathtaking opulence. Ethan parked his luxury sedan in the VIP section and tenderly helped me out. He slipped an arm around my waist, his voice filled with pride. "See, darling, this is a place worthy of welcoming our child." I nodded slightly, forcing a smile, but a strange chill crept into my heart. A hospital should inspire feelings of safety and trust, yet the sterile luxury here felt distant and stifling. The air wasn't filled with the familiar scent of antiseptic, but with the faint, expensive aroma of lemongrass essential oil, a pleasant but profoundly artificial scent. A nurse in a crisp, immaculate uniform led us directly to the chief of obstetrics' office without any waiting. The spacious room was exquisitely decorated with leather sofas, a mahogany desk, and fine art on the walls. If it weren't for the examination bed in the corner, I would have thought I had walked into a CEO's office. Seated in a large armchair was a middle-aged man with a tall, slender frame and gold-rimmed glasses, exuding an air of intellect and authority. This was Dr. Miller, whom Ethan always proudly introduced as his best friend from college. Upon seeing us, Dr. Miller stood up and greeted Ethan with a warm handshake and a booming voice. "Ethan, my old friend, it's been too long. I was so happy to hear you're expecting another one." He then turned to me, his smile welcoming, but his eyes held something strange, a fleeting, probing glance. "Hello, Sarah. I'm David. Please, make yourself at home. Ethan has told me everything. I'm to give his wife the most special care." I politely nodded in greeting, but his smile sent a shiver down my spine. It seemed too friendly, unnecessarily effusive. Ethan sat beside me, his hand never leaving mine. He chattered on, telling his friend about my difficult first delivery, his anxieties, and how much he trusted Dr. Miller's expertise. I sat quietly, feeling like an exhibit being presented. "Don't you worry, Ethan," Dr. Miller said, clapping my husband on the shoulder with an air of confidence. "She's in my hands now, so you can consider it all settled. I'll use the best methods, the most advanced equipment, and I guarantee a healthy mother, a healthy baby, and a smart, strong boy." After some small talk, Dr. Miller signaled the nurse. He looked at me. "All right, Sarah, if you'll just lie on the examination bed, we'll do a quick ultrasound to check on our little angel." I lay down on the bed, its crisp white sheet cool against my skin. Ethan stood right beside me, his eyes glued to the ultrasound monitor. "Doctor," Miller applied a cold gel to my abdomen and slowly moved the transducer. On the screen, faint black and white images began to appear. "There it is," Dr. Miller pointed to a small, flickering light. "The heartbeat. Can you hear it? Very strong, very steady. The rhythmic thumping of the fetal heartbeat, amplified through the speakers, filled the room. Hearing that magical sound, all my worries seemed to melt away. I turned to look at Ethan and saw his eyes glistening with happiness. But it was in that most peaceful and happy moment that something went wrong. As Dr. Miller moved the transducer to another area, the screen suddenly flickered with static. The image shrank and then went black. "Hey, what's going on?" Ethan frowned, his voice laced with annoyance. Dr. Miller appeared flustered. He tapped the screen a few times. "Just a small technical glitch, it seems. My apologies. Ethan, could you step outside and ask the technician in the next room to come take a look?" Ethan seemed displeased, but nodded and walked out. The moment the door clicked shut, the room, now occupied only by me, Dr. Miller, and the nurse, fell into a frightening silence. I remained on the bed, a knot of anxiety tightening in my stomach. Dr. Miller fiddled with the machine, muttering, "Can't believe this new machine is already having issues." But then he stopped. He wasn't looking at the machine anymore. He turned and looked directly at me. The welcoming smile from before had vanished, replaced by an intensely serious expression, a look of pity and fear. I froze, not understanding what was happening. Without a word, he silently pulled his phone from his lab coat pocket. His hand trembled as he pressed a speed dial number. My heart stopped. What was he doing? Why was he being so secretive? The call connected almost instantly. Dr. Miller didn't raise the phone to his ear. He pressed his mouth close to the microphone, his voice a rushed, desperate whisper. Every word he spoke was like a sledgehammer blow to my mind, leaving me deaf to everything else. "Hello. Is this the NYPD Detective Squad? This is Dr. Miller at Sterling Heights. There's a very serious... Get the police now. Her husband's family is planning to..." He only managed to get that far. Ethan's footsteps echoed from the hallway. Dr. Miller startled, quickly ending the call and stuffing the phone back into his pocket. He turned back to the ultrasound machine, pretending he was still inspecting it. But I had seen everything. I had heard everything. My entire body turned to ice. The blood in my veins felt like it had stopped flowing. Her husband's family is planning to do what? Why call the detective squad? Horrifying questions swirled in my head. Just then, Ethan walked in with a young technician. "So, David, is it fixed?" my husband asked, completely unaware that in the few short seconds he was gone, an earthquake had shattered his wife's world. Dr. Miller turned, a strained smile back on his face. "Ah, it was nothing. Just a loose cable. I've got it." He then turned to me. "Shall we continue, Sarah?" But I couldn't hear him anymore. I lay there, staring blankly at the white ceiling, my mind echoing with that terrifying phone call. My perfect husband, my respected in-laws, what secret were they hiding? A secret so monstrous that the chief of obstetrics, my husband's best friend, had to risk everything to call the police. My breath grew short, my chest crushed by an invisible weight. I wanted to scream, to demand answers, but my throat was choked shut. I knew for certain that from this moment on, my life would never be peaceful again. The luxury Bentley glided smoothly down the tree-lined street, carrying me away from the glass palace named Sterling Heights. But my mind was anything but smooth. It was like a placid lake into which a giant boulder had just been thrown. Waves of panic and suspicion churned violently, ceaselessly. I sat beside Ethan, who still held my hand tightly, occasionally turning to give me a gentle smile. That smile, which once made my heart melt with happiness, now sent a chill down my spine. I wondered what kind of person hid behind that perfect smile, behind those warm eyes. Was it a monster wearing an angel's mask? "What's wrong, Sarah?" Ethan's deep, warm voice pulled me from my chaotic thoughts. "You haven't said a word since we left the clinic, and you look so pale. Are you feeling tired?" I flinched, quickly forcing a smile that I knew was more contorted than a sob. "I'm fine. Just a little overwhelmed, I guess. It's my first time in such a fancy place. I'm not used to it." It was the clumsiest lie I could come up with, but it seemed to work. Ethan chuckled, a sound of relief. He brought my hand to his lips and kissed it softly. "My silly girl, you'll get used to it. We'll be going there every month until the baby comes. I want our child to be cared for in the best possible conditions." His words, best possible conditions, now planted a seed of formless fear in my heart. Best for the baby, or best for some conspiracy I knew nothing about? I didn't dare think further. I just turned to look out the window, pretending to watch the city streets fly by, but in my head, Dr. Miller's call replayed, every word crystal clear. Get the police, now. Her husband's family is planning to. I knew I couldn't live in this vague, terrifying uncertainty. I had to ask him, even if it meant tipping him off. I had to find a pretext, a natural, subtle way to approach it. I took a deep breath, turned to Ethan, and tried to sound curious and naive. Honey, back in the clinic, I think I overheard Dr. Miller on the phone with someone. He sounded really rushed, and I thought I heard him mention the police. Did something happen at the hospital? I braced myself for any reaction, but Ethan's composure was astonishing. He showed no surprise or alarm, just furrowed his brow slightly as if trying to remember. On the phone? I didn't notice. It was probably just an emergency case. It's a big hospital, Sarah. Things happen every day. And David is the department head. He's always busy. His explanation was perfectly plausible, with no loopholes. But I pressed on. But I heard him say it was really serious, and he mentioned something about a husband's family. I couldn't hear clearly. It just seemed strange. This time, I saw it. A minuscule pause. The hand on the steering wheel tightened for a split second. His eyes remained fixed on the road, but I could feel the tension in him. He was silent for a few seconds, long enough for me to know I had hit a nerve. Then he laughed, a somewhat forced laugh. Sarah, you really have a vivid imagination. You must have misheard. There's no way. David was probably watching a movie or reading something and just talking to himself. He has that weird habit. Don't overthink things. It's not good for the baby. He reached over and gently rubbed my belly. That warm touch, which once made me feel protected, now made me shudder. He was using our child to distract me, to shut down my curiosity. He was too smart, too smooth. Every word, every action was perfectly calculated, but that very perfection was what betrayed him. If there was truly nothing to hide, why didn't he ask me what I heard specifically? Why did he jump to the conclusion that I misheard or that Dr. Miller was joking? And most importantly, why did his hand grip the wheel so tightly when I mentioned the words, husband's family? I didn't ask any more questions. I knew pushing further would only make him more guarded. I pretended to accept his explanation. I leaned my head on his shoulder, my voice feigning a pout. Really? I guess I did mishear. I was just worried something bad had happened. There, he said, letting out a soft sigh of relief as he wrapped an arm around my shoulder. I'm here. Nothing bad can happen to you and the baby. That quiet sigh of relief was more damning than any confession. It told me I was on the right track, that a horrifying truth was being concealed. And he, the husband I loved most in the world, was a part of it. When we arrived home, our magnificent brownstone appeared before me. The place I once considered my paradise now felt like a gilded cage, cold and filled with invisible traps. My mother-in-law, Eleanor, rushed out to greet us, carrying a steaming bowl of a special herbal broth. You're back! How was the appointment? What did the doctor say? Come inside and have some soup to regain your strength. She was warm and caring, just like any thoughtful mother-in-law. But I no longer saw warmth in her eyes. I only saw a terrifying artificiality. I wondered if this bowl of broth contained anything other than herbs and feigned affection. I took the bowl, smiled, and thanked her, but my heart was frozen. I glanced at Ethan and saw him looking at me, his eyes as gentle as ever. But then I noticed it when he thought I wasn't looking. His eyes darted quickly toward his mother, a look full of hidden meaning. They were a team. And I was all alone. That night, I lay in Ethan's arms, pretending to be fast asleep, but my mind was sharper than ever. I felt his every breath, his every shift. I no longer felt safe. I only felt revulsion. I knew I was lying next to a wolf in sheep's clothing, someone who might be planning to harm his own wife and child. I couldn't just wait for something to happen. I had to do something. But what could I do when I was surrounded by his people? From his mother to the chief of obstetrics, who could I trust? In the darkness, I quietly placed a hand on my belly. My baby, what should I do? How can I protect you? I knew this would be a lonely and dangerous fight, but for my child, I could not afford to fall. No matter what I had to face, I had to find the truth. I had to expose their conspiracy. I didn't know where to start or who to trust, but I knew one thing for sure. I would never give up. The curtain was about to fall on this play of happiness, but did I have the strength to write a different ending myself, an ending where justice would be served? The following days passed in a suffocating atmosphere. Living in my own home felt like walking through a minefield. Every step had to be calculated, every word weighed. Ethan and his mother continued to play their parts to perfection. He was the model husband, and she was the doting mother-in-law, worried sick about her daughter-in-law. They took care of me meticulously, from my meals and sleep to my every move. But I knew that behind this excessive concern was a tight surveillance. I was like a prisoner in a luxury cell, my every action under their watchful eyes. I didn't dare act any differently. I kept smiling, speaking sweet words, and pretending to be a wife happily awaiting her second child. But inside, a storm was raging. Every night, after Ethan was sound asleep, I would lie awake, staring at the ceiling. Doctor, Miller's words, Ethan's gaze, Eleanor's smile, they all swirled in my mind, weaving the most horrific scenarios. I felt isolated and powerless. I needed someone to talk to, someone who could give me advice, someone I could trust absolutely. And only one name came to mind: Chloe. Chloe had been my best friend since college. She was nothing like me. While I was gentle and somewhat submissive, Chloe was strong, charismatic, and incredibly smart. She worked as an attorney for a prestigious law firm. Her sharp wit and logic were things I had always admired. We saw each other less after I got married, but our close friendship never wavered. I knew that if anyone in the world could help me now, it could only be her. But how could I meet her? I couldn't use my phone. Ethan had installed a tracking app on it, under the pretext of ensuring my safety. I knew he could check my calls and messages at any time. I couldn't drive out on my own either. Ever since the appointment at Sterling Heights, Ethan had used my delicate pregnancy as an excuse to forbid me from driving, always arranging for his private driver to take me wherever I needed to go. I had to find an excuse, an opportunity. And that opportunity came. My mother, who lived upstate, called to say that my grandmother was ill and wanted me to visit. I immediately told Ethan. He appeared very understanding and dutiful. "Oh no, poor Grandma, of course you should go visit her. I'll arrange for the driver to take you. Stay for a few days to keep her company." I was overjoyed. I said I would only go for the weekend, but I had other plans. I wasn't going upstate. I was going to find Chloe. On Saturday morning, the family's luxury car dropped me off at the bus station. I said goodbye to the driver, telling him I'd get a cab to my grandmother's house from there. As soon as the car was out of sight, I hailed a taxi and went straight to a different address, a small coffee shop in a quiet alley where I had arranged to meet Chloe. When I walked in, Chloe was already waiting. Seeing my haggard appearance and the dark circles under my eyes, she jumped to her feet. "Sarah, what happened to you? You look like you've seen a ghost." The moment I saw my best friend, all my repressed emotions burst forth. I threw my arms around her and broke down, sobbing uncontrollably. Tears of fear, loneliness, and helplessness streamed down my face. Chloe said nothing, just held me quietly, gently patting my back. She knew I needed a shoulder to lean on. When I had calmed down, I shakily told her everything, from the decision to deliver at Sterling Heights and the strange behavior of Ethan and Eleanor to Dr. Miller's terrifying phone call. I spoke between sobs, each word like another cut to my wounded heart. Chloe listened in silence, her expression growing harder and more serious. Her usual cheerful demeanor vanished, replaced by the grim, sharp focus of a lawyer analyzing a case. When I finished, she didn't offer immediate comfort. She looked me straight in the eye and asked a direct question. "Sarah, are you absolutely sure you heard every word correctly? Is there any chance you misheard?" "No chance," I said firmly. The room was silent. I heard him perfectly. His voice was filled with panic. Chloe nodded, her fingers tapping lightly on the table. "All right. If what you're saying is true, then this isn't a family dispute anymore. This is an organized criminal conspiracy, and you are in extreme danger." Hearing the word criminal, I started to tremble again. "Chloe, what do I do? I'm so scared. I don't know what they plan to do to me and my baby." "Calm down," Chloe said, gripping my hand, her touch conveying a surprising strength. "This is not the time to panic. The more you panic, the easier it is for them to act. You have to pretend. Pretend you know nothing. Remain the naive wife who trusts her husband completely. Can you do that?" I took a deep breath and nodded. I'll try." "Good," Chloe said. "Next step, we investigate." Dr. Miller's words are a clue, but they're too vague. Planning to could mean anything. We need to find their motive. Why would they do this? Can you think of any reason? Money? Inheritance? I shook my head. I don't know. Ethan's family is wealthy. They wouldn't need to do something so depraved for money. And he really loves me. "Love can be faked," Chloe cut in, "but greed is always real." "However, I have another theory. You said Leo, your first son, is very frail, right?" "Yes," I replied. "He's in the hospital almost every month." "Then the problem might lie there," Chloe said, her eyes narrowing. "There's a possibility, and it's a cruel one, but it's not impossible. Have you ever heard of the term savior sibling?" I shook my head, confused. "What's that?" "It's a child conceived for a medical purpose to provide stem cells, bone marrow, or even an organ for an older sibling suffering from a serious illness. Medically, it's feasible, but ethically, it's a hugely controversial issue. And in your case, if this theory is correct, it's no longer about ethics, it's a crime." A chill washed over me. "You mean this baby is being born to save Leo?" "I can't say for sure yet," Chloe said, "but it's an angle we have to investigate. The first thing we need to do is find out what Leo's actual medical condition is. Do you have his medical records?" "No," I shook my head. "Every time he sees a doctor, my mother-in-law keeps all the paperwork. She says she keeps it safe. She also never lets me take him to any doctor other than a private clinic run by a family friend." "See?" Chloe said. "The wall of secrecy is already there. You can't get the records, but maybe I can. I have a few contacts in the medical field. I'll try to look up Leo's information in the system. It'll be difficult, but not impossible." Hearing Chloe speak gave me a glimmer of hope. For the first time after days shrouded in darkness, I felt I wasn't alone. I had Chloe, a smart and powerful ally. "So what do I do now?" I asked. Chloe looked at me, her voice serious. "You have to go back to that cage and keep acting. Act your part perfectly. Don't show any cracks. Leave the investigation to me. I'll contact you through a secure channel. You have to trust me, Sarah. We will find the truth together." I nodded, tears welling up again. But this time, they were tears of gratitude. I left the coffee shop no longer a panicked, helpless woman. I had a plan, a purpose, and a partner. My war was just beginning. But I had no idea that the truth we were about to uncover was far more horrifying and cruel than anything we could have imagined. It wasn't just a conspiracy. It was a crime masked by the most twisted and sickening kind of love. Returning from my meeting with Chloe, I felt a new, invisible strength coursing through me. The fear was still there, but it no longer overwhelmed my reason. A cold, hard calm had settled over me. I knew I was playing a dangerous game where one wrong move could cost me everything. But there was no turning back. For my son, for my unborn child, and for myself, I had to see this through to the end. I came home on Sunday afternoon, right on schedule. Ethan picked me up from the bus station, as gentle and attentive as ever. He pulled me into a hug, inhaling the scent of my hair. "Is Grandma feeling better?" "You were only gone 2 days, but I missed you so much." I leaned against his chest, playing the part of a wife just returned from a trip. "She's fine, honey. I missed you and Leo, too." But inside, a wave of revulsion washed over me. This embrace, this scent, it was all a lie. In the days that followed, I began the first phase of my plan, to uncover the truth about Leo's illness. I couldn't ask Ethan or Eleanor directly. I had to find out for myself. I started paying closer attention to the supplements Eleanor gave Leo every day. She always called them custom-blended herbal remedies from an exclusive holistic practitioner. She claimed Western medicine was harmful and that these natural remedies were best for him. She carefully brewed the mixture daily, its strong, earthy scent filling the house. But she never let me see the prescription or told me the practitioner's name. Every time I tried to look, she would wave me away. "You don't know anything about these things, dear. Just let me handle it. You need to focus on taking care of that baby in your belly." Her evasiveness only fueled my suspicions. One afternoon, while Eleanor was out, I slipped into the kitchen. The dregs of the herbal mixture were still in the pot. I carefully poured some out, dried them on a paper towel, and took detailed photos of each component. I sent the pictures to Chloe, asking her to find an expert to analyze them. While waiting for the results, I decided on a bolder move. I had to get Leo to another hospital for a proper examination. I couldn't trust the family's private clinic anymore. I approached Ethan. "Honey, I've noticed Leo has been coughing a lot at night. What if we take him to the pediatric specialists at Mount Sinai for a full checkup? Just to be safe." Ethan, who was watching TV, froze. The remote nearly slipped from his hand. He turned to me, his eyes narrowed with suspicion. "Why there? Isn't Mom's naturopathic treatment working well? The doctor at the clinic said it's just his weak constitution and that he'll grow out of it. But I'm still worried," I insisted, feigning anxiety. "He hasn't had a comprehensive exam in a long time. I just want to be sure he's okay." "Stop it!" Ethan snapped, a rare flash of irritation. "Don't be so paranoid. Those big hospitals are crowded and full of germs. What if he catches something else? Just listen to Mom. She would never do anything to harm her grandson." He turned back to the TV, ending the conversation. His reaction said it all. He was scared of me taking our son somewhere he couldn't control, scared the truth would be exposed. But I didn't give up. A few days later, I tried again, this time approaching my mother-in-law directly. I chose a moment when she was happily playing with Leo. "Mom, how about we take Leo to the Central Park Zoo this weekend? It's been so long since he's had a proper outing." Eleanor seemed pleased and readily agreed. My plan was to fake a sudden stomachache for Leo on the way and insist on going to the nearest hospital, but it seemed my every move was anticipated. On Saturday morning, as I was getting ready, Eleanor entered my room, looking apologetic. "Sarah, dear, I'm so sorry. I woke up feeling a bit unwell this morning. I don't think I can make it to the zoo. Maybe next weekend." She coughed a few times, pressing a hand to her forehead, but I could see she was perfectly fine. Her cheeks were rosy, her eyes sharp. She was lying. She had figured out my plan and was stopping it. Every path seemed blocked. I felt helpless and enraged. They had built an impenetrable fortress of secrecy around Leo. There was no way I could break through. Just as I was sinking into despair, my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. I quickly went into the bathroom and locked the door. The message was short. "The photos you sent aren't supplements. They're immunosuppressants. Stop him from taking them." It was from Chloe. She had the results. Immunosuppressants. Why would Leo be taking those? They were powerful drugs, typically used for organ transplant patients or those with autoimmune diseases. They weren't supplements. Eleanor had lied. The entire family had been lying to me about my son's health. My heart felt like it was being crushed. How could they treat their own son, their own grandson, like this? What illness were they hiding? Chloe's theory about the savior sibling returned to my mind, clearer and more terrifying than ever. I sank to the bathroom floor, tears streaming down my face. I cried for my son, an innocent child suffering from a disease his own mother wasn't allowed to know about. I cried for the cruelty and deceit of the people I once called family. I knew I couldn't just sit here and cry. I had to find another way. If I couldn't get my son out, I had to bring someone in. I needed someone who could enter my house legally, get close to Leo, and obtain a blood sample for testing. But who? A doctor? No, they would never let a stranger in. A nurse was too risky. As my mind raced, an idea sparked. There was one person who could come and go from my house without arousing suspicion: Leo's English tutor. His old tutor had just quit. I could use this opportunity to find a replacement, someone of my own choosing, someone who was part of my plan. I wiped my tears and stood up, my eyes shining with steely determination. "You built a wall," I thought, "so I will drill a hole through it. Even a small hole would be enough for the light of truth to shine in." This was a battle I could not lose. I was betting not only my life but the futures of my 2 children. The plan to find a special tutor to get close to Leo spurred me into immediate action. I couldn't let my son continue taking those immunosuppressants without knowing the real reason. I contacted Chloe through the secure messaging app she'd installed for me and laid out my entire plan. "Chloe, I need your help. I need to find someone trustworthy, with medical training, who can pose as an English tutor. This person has to be skillful enough to get a blood sample from Leo without being detected." On the other end, Chloe was silent for a long moment. I knew it was a difficult and risky request. "That's tough, Sarah," she finally said. "Finding someone like that won't be easy, but it's not impossible. I have a cousin, Laura, who's a registered nurse at another hospital. She's very capable, discreet, and has a strong sense of justice. Let me talk to her." I felt like I had grasped a lifeline. "Really? Please ask her for me. I'll pay her well." "It's not about the money," Chloe replied. "It's about whether she's willing to put herself in danger. I'll let you know." The next few days were a blur of waiting and preparation. I casually told Ethan and Eleanor that I wanted to find a new tutor for Leo. He's been so cooped up lately because he's not well. I think having someone come over to talk and play with him would do him good, help him be more cheerful. My reasoning was sound. They had no suspicions and were even supportive. "Go ahead and look," Ethan said. "Just find someone experienced and trustworthy. Money is no object." He had no idea the trustworthy person I was about to bring into our home was the one who would tear down his wall of secrets. Luck was on my side. A few days later, Chloe called. Laura had agreed. After hearing my story, she said she couldn't stand by and do nothing. The stage was set perfectly. I pretended to post a tutor search on a few parenting forums. Chloe had Laura create a fake profile with extensive experience teaching young children. I coincidentally found Laura's profile and scheduled an interview at my home, with Eleanor present. Laura, with her gentle demeanor and soft-spoken nature, easily won my mother-in-law over. Eleanor hired her on the spot, instructing her to take special care of her precious grandson. And just like that, Laura, a nurse with a secret mission, officially entered my home. For the first few sessions, she focused on building trust with Leo and the family. She was brilliant, seamlessly blending lessons with stories and games. Leo, normally shy and quiet, adored her. Seeing my son laughing and happy brought a mix of joy and sorrow to my heart. The day of action was set for a Wednesday afternoon when Ethan was at work and Eleanor had her weekly book club meeting. According to the plan, Laura would tell me Leo needed a small blood type test for a school science project. She would use a simple finger prick device, a common procedure that wouldn't cause much pain. The blood sample would then be secretly sent for analysis. But our plans went awry. That afternoon, just as Laura had the kit ready, Eleanor came home unexpectedly, claiming she felt tired and had left her meeting early. Laura and I froze. The plan was about to fall apart. Laura's quick thinking saved us. She hid the kit and turned to Eleanor with a natural smile. "Oh, hello, ma'am. I was just about to do a little science experiment with Leo, looking at cells under a microscope, but I suppose we can do it another time." Eleanor, none the wiser, simply nodded and went to her room. But I knew we couldn't wait. Her sudden return proved she was always on guard. That night, I tossed and turned, unable to sleep. I felt I was putting too many people in danger: Laura, Chloe, and even Dr. Miller. I realized I had done nothing to repay the brave doctor for his help. His warning was still unfinished. He surely knew more than what he had said. I had to see him again. But how? I couldn't just go to the hospital. Ethan and Eleanor would never allow it. I turned to Chloe again. "Chloe, I have to see Dr. Miller. Do you have any ideas?" Chloe thought for a moment. "The only way is to create a fake emergency, but one that's real enough for Ethan to believe it, and take you to Sterling Heights to see Dr. Miller specifically." Another daring plan was hatched, this one far more dangerous. I would have to injure myself. The following night, while Ethan slept soundly, I tiptoed down to the kitchen. My hand trembled as I picked up a paring knife. I closed my eyes, clenched my jaw, and made a cut on my calf, not too deep, but long enough to bleed significantly. A sharp, searing pain shot up my leg. I stifled a scream, quickly wrapping a towel around the wound, and stumbled back to our room. I shook Ethan awake, my voice frantic. "Ethan, help me! I fell down the stairs. My leg is bleeding so much." Ethan jolted awake. Seeing the blood, he panicked. He scooped me up, rushed me to the car, and sped toward Sterling Heights Medical Center. "David, help my wife," he yelled upon reaching the emergency room. Dr. Miller, who was on duty, saw me. A flicker of shock crossed his eyes, quickly replaced by professionalism. He signaled for the nurses to take me into a treatment room, keeping Ethan outside. Inside the sterile white room, it was just me and Dr. Miller. As he cleaned my wound, he spoke in a low, reproachful voice. "Are you out of your mind? Why would you do something so reckless?" "I had no other choice," I whispered, tears welling up. "Doctor, please, tell me everything. What are they planning to do to me and my baby?" Dr. Miller sighed. He glanced toward the door to ensure no one was listening, then turned back, his voice barely audible. But his every word was like a thunderclap in my ears. "They don't just want the baby, Sarah. They want you dead. The plan is to stage an accident on the operating table. After the baby is delivered, you'll suffer an uncontrollable hemorrhage or a severe allergic reaction to the anesthesia. The official record will call it a tragic medical accident. Your husband will be the grieving widower, left alone to raise 2 small children. No one will suspect a thing." My blood ran cold. So, his unfinished call. Her husband's family is planning to kill her. It was true. But why? I trembled. Why kill me? Dr. Miller looked at me with pity. "Because you would figure it out eventually. And for another reason. Your husband took out a very large life insurance policy on you. The sole beneficiary is him." I was stunned. Life insurance. All the horrifying pieces clicked into place. The baby was to save their first son. My death was to silence me and provide them with a massive fortune. Love, marriage, it was all just a brutally calculated game. The husband I adored was a monster in human skin. I fainted right there in the emergency room, into the arms of the stranger who was the only one telling me the truth. I woke up in a stark white hospital bed, the sharp smell of antiseptic filling my nostrils. Ethan was sitting beside me, holding my hand. His face was drawn and haggard, his eyes red with worry. The moment he saw my eyes open, he leaned in, his voice full of concern and pain. "Sarah, you're awake. You scared me to death. How could you be so careless on the stairs? The doctor said you're lucky it was just a soft tissue injury and the baby is fine." He was a phenomenal actor. The look of a husband utterly devoted to his wife almost made me soften, but Dr. Miller's words were now an impenetrable wall of ice between us. I looked at him, the man I once loved with my entire being. Now, all I saw was a stranger, a monster wearing a perfect mask. I managed a weak smile. "I'm sorry I worried you. I must have gotten dizzy and slipped." "Don't talk," he said, stroking my hair. "Just rest. I'm here." His gentleness now only made me feel sick. I closed my eyes, pretending to drift off, but my mind was a raging tempest. Kill me on the operating table, take the insurance money. His plan was more depraved and monstrous than I could ever have imagined. He didn't just want to use my child, he wanted to erase me from existence. Dr. Miller entered the room, followed by a nurse. He checked my wound and then turned to Ethan. "Her condition is stable. The cut isn't deep, but she'll need to stay for a few days of observation to ensure the baby's safety." "Of course, whatever you think is best, David," Ethan said, his voice filled with gratitude. "Give her the best care you can." "Don't worry," Dr. Miller replied, his eyes briefly and discreetly meeting mine. "She's my special patient." I understood his signal. He was telling me that here, for now, I was safe. During my hospital stay, Ethan and Eleanor took turns caring for me. They brought the most delicious food and spoke the sweetest words. They performed the perfect play of a happy family overcoming a crisis. But I knew it was all a lie. The more attentive they were, the more terrified I became. I knew they were just waiting waiting for the day I was on the operating table, the day they would make their move. Chloe and Laura visited me, bringing a large fruit basket and fresh flowers. In front of Ethan, we chatted cheerfully about trivial things. But the moment Ethan stepped out to take a call, Chloe leaned close, whispering urgently in my ear. "How are you holding up?" Laura got the blood sample from Leo. "The preliminary results are exactly what we suspected. He has severe beta thalassemia, a serious genetic blood disorder. The best chance for a cure is a stem cell transplant from a full sibling with a perfect HLA match." Even though I was prepared, my heart still ached. So it was true. My son was gravely ill, and the baby in my womb was his only hope, but in the most criminal way. "And about your situation," Chloe continued, her voice filled with rage. "I can't believe Ethan is that kind of person. Killing his wife for insurance money? He's an animal. What do we do now?" I asked, my voice desperate. "I can't go back to that house, but if I run, he won't leave me alone." "You can't run," Chloe said firmly. "Running shows weakness. You have to face this. You have to turn the tables on them." "But how?" I sobbed. "I'm all alone." "You're not alone." A calm, deep voice came from the doorway. Dr. Miller had entered without us noticing. He closed the door, his expression grave. "You're not alone. You have me." Chloe and I stared at him, stunned. "Doctor," I asked, "why are you helping me? You're Ethan's best friend." Dr. Miller sighed, a look of profound sadness and regret in his eyes. "Yes, I once considered him a friend, but I cannot be an accomplice to a crime. I am a doctor. The Hippocratic Oath won't allow it. Besides," he hesitated, "I owe someone an apology. Ethan's ex-wife. She was also my patient. She went through something similar. But back then, I was a coward. I chose silence. I let her face that monster alone. I've lived with that guilt for years. This time, I will not make the same mistake." The story of the ex-wife confirmed Ethan's true nature. I wasn't his first victim. "So what's their specific plan for the operating room?" Chloe asked, her lawyer's mind cutting straight to the point. Dr. Miller explained the sophisticated plot. "Sarah's C-section will be performed by me and my trusted team. But Eleanor has insisted on bringing in an auxiliary team for extra security. That team is actually her people, including a specific anesthesiologist. Their plan is that after I deliver the baby, this anesthesiologist will administer an overdose. Sarah will go into respiratory failure and cardiac arrest. They will blame it on a rare, unforeseeable allergic reaction. It will look like a medical accident, nearly impossible to investigate. While everyone is focused on resuscitating Sarah, their team will take the baby, claiming it needs special observation. Then, they'll proceed with the marrow harvest immediately." Hearing this, I trembled uncontrollably. It was a perfect plan. 1 stone, 3 birds, marrow for Leo, insurance money, and me, eliminated. "We have to call the police now," Chloe insisted. "Not yet," Dr. Miller shook his head. "My word alone isn't enough evidence. They'll deny everything. Ethan and Eleanor are too cunning. We need to catch them in the act. We need to let them execute their plan." "But that's too dangerous for Sarah," Chloe protested. "I won't let that happen," Dr. Miller said, his eyes filled with determination. "We'll turn their plan against them. We'll let the surgery happen, but on our terms. I'll need both of your help. We are going to turn that operating room into a trap, a stage to expose their entire crime to the world." I looked at Dr. Miller, then at Chloe, and then down at my growing belly. The fear inside me slowly morphed into a cold rage and an iron will. They wanted me dead. Well, I would show them what a mother backed into a corner could become. "I'll do it," I said, my voice resolute. "I'll go along with the plan. I will turn their day of triumph into their day of judgment." An alliance for vengeance was forged right there in my hospital room. A pregnant mother, a female lawyer, and a doctor, 3 strangers, bound by fate with a single goal: to bring the monsters in human clothing to justice. In the following days, my hospital room became our secret command center. Under the guise of friendly visits and routine checkups, we mapped out a plan detailed to the last second. We called it Operation Sunrise. It wasn't just a defensive strategy, it was an all-out counterattack, a meticulously laid trap for the beasts to walk right into. The first and most critical step was for me to continue my performance. I had to be the weak, frightened wife, traumatized by her fall, completely dependent on her husband. I had to make Ethan and Eleanor believe that I suspected nothing, that I was still the naive little lamb waiting for slaughter. It wasn't easy. Every time Ethan held my hand and whispered words of love, I had to suppress the nausea rising in my throat. Every time Eleanor brought me a bowl of nourishing soup, I had to smile and thank her while wanting to throw it across the room. I acted with every glance, every smile, every gesture. I became a better actor than Ethan himself. "I'm so scared, honey," I said to him, my voice trembling, my eyes welling with tears. "That fall has me so shaken. I'm terrified something will go wrong during the delivery. What if we schedule a C-section? I hear it's safer." This was part of our plan. We had to be the ones to suggest the surgery to eliminate any suspicion. As predicted, Ethan was visibly pleased. He pulled me into a hug. There. Don't be scared." I was about to suggest the same thing. "Your mother and I already discussed it. We'll schedule it. I've already asked David to pick the best day, the best time. Just relax. I've arranged everything." He had no idea that the best day was the one we had chosen. While I recovered, Chloe and Dr. Miller were working relentlessly. Chloe, unable to investigate directly as my lawyer, hired a professional. "I know a guy," she told me. "Mr. Peterson, a retired NYPD detective turned PI. He's a real old fox, discreet and incredibly effective. If anyone can dig up the skeletons in the Ethan family closet, it's him." Mr. Peterson, a man with a weathered face but eyes as sharp as a hawk's, joined our alliance. His mission: gather all tangible evidence. "We need everything," Chloe instructed him. "Bank statements for Ethan and Eleanor, unusual transactions, call logs, travel records, and I need you to dig deep into that life insurance policy. I want a copy of the contract and any proof that he inquired about payouts for death by medical accident." Mr. Peterson simply nodded and left. His quiet confidence was reassuring. Meanwhile, Dr. Miller began working from inside the enemy's camp. He was our trump card. As the head of the department and Ethan's best friend, he had access to information no one else could get. "I'll find a way to get the original medical file for Leo," he told us. "It must be locked away somewhere in the office of the hospital director, Ethan's father. I'll also get the details on Eleanor's auxiliary team. I need to know who they are, especially that anesthesiologist. We need to know our enemy." Crucially, Dr. Miller also secretly contacted a few trusted colleagues, doctors and nurses with integrity and courage. He didn't tell them the whole truth, only that a complex surgery was coming up that required extreme preparation for unexpected situations. He was forming his own rapid response team, ready to intervene at a moment's notice. Everything was moving forward, quietly but urgently. I remained in the hospital, acting my part. The day of the surgery was set less than 2 weeks away. One evening, Ethan came into my room alone, holding a folder. "My love," he said, his smile as radiant as ever, "I have a gift for you." He handed me the folder. Inside were the deeds to a luxurious new townhouse in a gated community, all in my name. "I want you and the kids to have a new, spacious place after the baby comes. Do you like it?" he asked, his eyes full of anticipation. The Sarah from a month ago would have been ecstatic, but now I only felt a profound disgust. What was this? A bribe? A final treat for the prey before the kill? I looked up at him, my eyes filling with manufactured tears of joy. "Thank you, honey. I don't know what to say. You always take such good care of us." "Silly girl," he said, hugging me, "as long as you're happy." But I knew this wasn't a gift. It was a reminder of my price, of my role in his game. I leaned against his chest, my heart cold as stone. He didn't know that the little lamb he was holding was no longer naive. She was waiting for the day she would shed her fleece and bear the fangs of a wounded wolf. And that day was coming very soon. In this chess game, he would not be the one to make the final move. In the final days before the surgery, Operation Sunrise kicked into high gear. All the evidence was being compiled with extreme urgency. I, the recovering patient, had become the secret coordinator of the entire campaign. My luxurious hospital room had transformed into a war room, where the darkest of conspiracies was being laid bare. One afternoon, just after Ethan left, Chloe slipped into my room, her face a mixture of excitement and fury. She plugged a small USB drive into her laptop. "You have to see this, Sarah," Peterson really delivered. On the screen, a series of files appeared. The complete bank statements for Ethan and Eleanor for the past year. Chloe pointed to highlighted lines. "Look here." A series of large, unexplained wire transfers to a health consulting firm in Singapore. And here regular, large cash withdrawals every month, totaling hundreds of thousands of dollars. "What was it for?" I asked, my heart pounding. "I suspect it's bribe money, hush money," Chloe explained. "More importantly, look at Ethan's transaction history. Right after you told him you were pregnant, there was a huge payment to an insurance company. Peterson confirmed it was the premium for your life insurance policy." Chloe opened another file, a scanned copy of the policy. My name, Sarah Jenkins, was clearly listed as the insured. Under beneficiary, there was only one name, Ethan Carter. The policy amount, $20 million. Even though I knew it was coming, seeing it in black and white made me tremble. My life, and the life of my unborn child, had been valued in cold, hard numbers. "That's not all," Chloe said, her voice growing sharper. She played an audio file. "Peterson managed to plant a bug in Ethan's car. Listen to this conversation between him and his mother." A familiar, heart-wrenching voice filled the room. It was Ethan. "Don't worry, Mom. Everything is arranged. I've handled things with David's department. Just have your team ready. On the day, at the right time, it will all be over." Naturally. Then came Eleanor's voice, sharp and cruel. "Make sure there are no mistakes. That girl, she seems different lately. Don't let everything fall apart at the last minute. After this, Leo will have his transplant, and you will have your money. We can start a new life." "I know, Mom," Ethan replied. "She'll never suspect a thing. She still thinks I'm the most loving husband in the world. What a fool." What a fool. The words struck me like a physical blow. Any last flickering ember of love or hope I had for him was extinguished. I didn't cry. I just felt an empty, terrifying void. The pain had solidified into a cold, silent fury. At the same time, Dr. Miller brought back crucial information. He had successfully retrieved and photographed Leo's original, hidden medical file from the office of the hospital director, Ethan's father. Just as Laura's test had indicated, Leo had severe beta thalassemia. But the most horrifying part was in the final pages, minutes from a sham medical ethics committee created by Ethan's father. They had concluded that a transplant from a full HLA-matched sibling was the sole and urgent course of action, to be performed immediately following the second child's birth to ensure the highest probability of success. "This isn't a medical record," Dr. Miller said, his voice seething. "It's a death sentence, pre-written for your baby and for you. They've sanitized their crime with medical jargon." Dr. Miller had also obtained the full list of Eleanor's auxiliary team. The anesthesiologist was Dr. Leo Vance, a man with a history of professional misconduct who had been protected by Ethan's father. He was to be my executioner. All the pieces were in place. The insurance fraud, the murder plot, the scheme to use a newborn for a transplant, a sophisticated and monstrous criminal network was exposed. "What now?" I asked, my voice calm and sharp. "Is it enough to take them to court?" "More than enough," Chloe confirmed. "With this, they can't deny anything. I'll prepare a full dossier for the district attorney." "No," I shook my head. "That's not enough. I don't just want them in prison. I want them ruined. I want the whole world to know their true faces." I looked at Chloe and Dr. Miller, my eyes burning with a new fire. "We're not going to the police beforehand. We're going to let their play unfold. But the stage will be ours, and the audience will be justice and the entire world." A bold, perfect idea ignited in my mind. "Dr. Miller, can you secretly install cameras in the operating room?" I want the entire process, from the moment I'm put under to the moment they try to kill me, to be recorded and streamed live. Dr. Miller was taken aback, but then he nodded. It will be incredibly difficult, but I can do it. Good, I said. Chloe, contact the most trusted journalists you know. Tell them there's going to be a press conference that will shake the city, but don't reveal the details. Let them wait. I walked to the window, looking down at the bustling city below. Eleanor was right. They would have a new life, but it would be behind bars. And I would have a new life too, one free of lies and fear, a life with my children. I turned back, a cold smile on my lips. In this play, I will be the director, and the final curtain call will be spectacular. The battle had entered its final stage. This was no longer defense. It was time to attack. And this final blow would be a lightning strike that would bring the entire fraudulent empire of the Carter family crashing down. The truth was laid bare. The ironclad evidence was in our hands. But for me, one piece was still missing. I needed to know, did Ethan, the man I once loved, ever truly love me? Or was I just a pawn from the very beginning? In my final days at the hospital, I deliberately acted more fragile and dependent than ever. I'd hold his hand, looking at him with utter trust. "Oh, Ethan, I'm so scared. You're the only one I can count on. Promise you'll always be there for me and the kids." Ethan, blinded by the arrogance of a hunter who believes his prey is already caught, was completely convinced by my performance. "Of course, my love," he'd soothe. "Don't be afraid. I'll never leave you. You and the children are my everything." His sweet words now tasted like poison, but I kept up the act. I knew that when a man is at his most confident and least guarded, his true self is most likely to slip out. The opportunity came one evening when we were alone. I asked, feigning casual curiosity, "Honey, I've always wondered, back then, with so many beautiful, successful women chasing you, why did you choose me? I was just an ordinary girl from a simple family." Ethan chuckled, a proud, self-satisfied sound. He tapped my nose playfully. "Because you were innocent, Sarah. I loved your pure, sweet innocence. With you, I felt a sense of peace. I didn't have to be on my guard, didn't have to play games like with those other women." Innocent. The word was a knife in my heart. He didn't love me for who I was, but because I was easy to manipulate. I forced a shy smile. "Oh, I thought it was because I was pretty." "Well, you are beautiful, of course," he said. "But more importantly, you're gentle and you listen. That's what makes a good wife. Marrying a woman who's too smart, too sharp, it's exhausting." Every word he spoke, without a hint of shame, stripped away his disguise. He didn't want a partner. He wanted a pretty, obedient doll. But the final, crushing blow came from Mr. Peterson. He sent Chloe one last piece of intel, something he described as sensitive. Chloe forwarded it to me. It was a short, secretly recorded video from a security camera at a high-end bar. Ethan was there with some friends, clearly drunk. I heard his voice, slurred but boastful. "You guys see how I do it? This girl, Sarah, she's sweet, but a total fool. Believes every word I say. Told her to sign a $20 million life insurance policy, and she signed it without a second thought. Told her we needed another kid to save Leo, and she was happy to do it. That's women for you. Give them a little sweetness, a little romance, and you can control their whole world." One of his friends asked, "But you don't have any feelings for her? She's your wife, about to have your second kid." Ethan roared with laughter, a savage, ugly sound. "Feelings? You can't cash feelings at the bank. To me, women are just tools. Some are for sex, some are for making babies, and some are for making money." Sarah checked all 3 boxes. She's perfect. After she's done her part, I get the kid, and I get a huge pile of cash. Then I'll be free to live the life I've always wanted. The video ended. I sat motionless, the phone slipping from my numb fingers. My ears were ringing. Women are just tools. After she's done her part, his words were 1,000 poison needles piercing every cell of my body. There had never been any love, not a single shred. From the very beginning, it was all a cold, dirty, ruthless calculation. In his eyes, I was never a wife, never a person he loved. I was just a tool, a walking incubator, and a living insurance policy. Tears streamed down my face, but they weren't tears of grief. They were tears of pure, unadulterated rage. I wept for my own foolishness. I had given 5 years of my youth, all of my love and trust, to a demon, to the lowest form of scum. I wiped my eyes, an eerie calm washing over me. Love was dead. Completely. All that remained was a single, burning purpose: revenge. I wouldn't just expose his crimes, I would destroy him. I would take away everything he craved: money, status, freedom. I would make him pay the ultimate price for his betrayal. I picked up the phone and called Chloe. "Chloe, it's enough. I have nothing left to lose. Get everything ready. I want this play to end in the most painful way possible for them." My voice was as cold as ice. Chloe was silent for a second, then replied, "I understand. Leave it to me. Just take care of yourself and get ready for the final day." The final day, I thought. It would not be the end for me. It would be Judgment Day for him. I looked out the window at the gray, overcast sky. A storm was coming, just like the storm inside me. All gentleness was gone, replaced by a tempest of hatred, ready to sweep everything away. In this play, I wouldn't just be the director, I would be the final judge. After the last shred of affection for Ethan was incinerated by that video, I was transformed. Pain had been forged into a weapon, a cold, sharp resolve. I knew that to bring down a manipulator like Ethan, I couldn't be impulsive. I had to act, performing a play even more perfect than his, one where I held all the strings. I began the next phase of my plan, actively luring the enemy into the trap we had set. On the day I was discharged, Ethan and Eleanor came to pick me up, still playing the part of the overjoyed, attentive family. "Time to go home, sweetie," Ethan said, his arm around my waist. "Get some rest and build up your strength. Everything's ready." I leaned into him, looking up with tear-filled, glistening eyes. They weren't tears of weakness. They were part of the costume. "Ethan, I'm still so scared," I said, my voice a convincing tremor. "That fall, it haunts me. I'm so worried something will happen during the delivery. I just want our baby to be safe." Eleanor quickly interjected, taking my hand. "Don't you worry, dear. Ethan and I are here. We've chosen the best hospital, the best doctor. Nothing will go wrong." "But I have such a bad feeling," I continued, tears now rolling down my cheeks. Maybe we should see an astrologer? Find a truly auspicious day and time for a scheduled C-section. For good luck. I just want our baby to have a peaceful entry into the world." My suggestion, colored with the superstitious anxiety of a traumatized young mother, hit its mark. Eleanor, who was deeply into New Age spiritualism, nodded eagerly. "You're absolutely right. I was just thinking the same thing. Let me consult my spiritual advisor. He's very gifted. He'll pick a golden moment for us. My grandchild must be born on a perfect day, at a perfect time. It will ensure he has a great destiny." Ethan looked at me with a flicker of surprise, which quickly melted into satisfaction. He probably thought this naive, superstitious wife would be even easier to control. He had no idea that the gifted advisor was an actor hired by Chloe, and the golden moment was the exact date and time we had chosen for our finale. "Just trust me, dear," Eleanor said confidently. "I'll handle everything." In the following days, Eleanor did just that. She came back with a detailed astrological chart, declaring that a specific day and hour was the cosmic gateway to welcome the new baby, who would bring prosperity to the entire family. I feigned immense relief, thanking her profusely. I actively discussed the C-section with Ethan, asking about the surgical team and pain management options, projecting an image of complete trust in his arrangements. My docile, naive act lulled them into a false sense of security. They believed their prey was peacefully waiting in the trap. Meanwhile, behind the curtain, our operation was running at full tilt. Dr. Miller finalized the installation of microcameras in the operating room and the recovery suite. The feeds would be streamed directly to a secret command hub where Chloe and her legal team would be watching. There will be 3 simultaneous streams, Dr. Miller explained. One for us, one for a specialized NYPD unit we've briefed, and one encrypted stream that will be sent to major news outlets at the precise moment. Chloe had all the legal paperwork ready. "It's all set," she told me. "The criminal complaint, the emergency arrest warrants all signed and sealed. The second we give the signal from the OR, everything gets activated." Mr. Peterson, the P.I., completed his final task. He had located and spoken with Ethan's ex-wife. Initially terrified, she eventually agreed to help after seeing our evidence and realizing another woman was facing the same fate. She provided a notarized, detailed written statement about the abuse she suffered and the medical accident Ethan had tried to orchestrate during her delivery years ago. Her letter would be the final nail in the coffin of Ethan's perfect husband persona. Everything was in place. The biggest performance of my life was about to begin. As the day drew nearer, Ethan and Eleanor became even more doting, terrified I might do something to jeopardize the plan. Little did they know, I was taking excellent care of myself not for them, but because I knew I needed to be at my strongest for the final battle. The night before I was admitted, Ethan held me close. "Get some sleep," he whispered. "Tomorrow is a big day. Everything is going to be okay." I snuggled against him and closed my eyes. "Yes," I said, "I know everything is going to be okay." We spoke the same words, but with entirely different meanings. He was thinking of the start of his new, wealthy life after my death. I was thinking of the start of my new life, free from him. I lay there, feeling the steady breathing of the monster beside me. I was no longer afraid. I just felt a strange pity. He had calculated everything, but had forgotten one crucial variable: never underestimate a mother. To protect her children, a mother can do anything, including transforming herself from a lamb into a vengeful wolf. And tomorrow, that wolf would tear her prey to shreds without a moment's hesitation. That morning, the sky was a brilliant, cloudless blue. Sunlight streamed through the window, dancing on the floor. It was a beautiful day, perfect for a new beginning or a final end. I woke up early, quietly taking in our bedroom one last time. It had held so many sweet memories, so much laughter, so many promises, all of it now a bitter, poisonous lie. The wedding photo on the wall, the scent of his cologne in the air, it all made me sick. I walked to the bassinet and looked at Leo, sleeping peacefully. I bent down and kissed his small forehead, a hot tear splashing onto his cheek. "Leo, I'm so sorry," I whispered. "I'm sorry I couldn't give you a whole family. But I promise from now on, I will spend my entire life protecting you, giving you the peaceful, happy life you deserve." I knew that after today, his world would change. But it was better for him to grow up with a painful truth than in a family built on deceit and crime. Ethan woke up and came to stand behind me, wrapping his arms around my waist. "You're up early. Feeling nervous?" I leaned back against him, my voice deliberately shaky. "I'm excited, but also scared. I can't wait to meet her, but I just have this feeling of anxiety." "Hey, now," he said, turning me to face him. "I'm here, and Dr. Miller is the best. Everything is going to be okay. You just have to trust me." "Trust you?" I almost laughed out loud. I looked deep into his eyes, searching for any flicker of the man I thought I knew, but there was nothing. Only a cold, calculating emptiness behind a perfect facade. The car from Sterling Heights arrived on time. Eleanor was there, dressed in an expensive suit, her face perfectly made up, but unable to hide her anxious anticipation. She took my hand. "Go with peace of mind, Sarah. We'll all be out here praying for you and the baby." I looked at her, the woman who planned my murder with her son, and nodded slightly. "Thank you, Mom." On the way to the hospital, Ethan chattered endlessly about the future, how we'd decorate the baby's room, how he'd teach Leo and his little sister to play soccer. He painted a picture so idyllic, I might have believed it myself if I didn't know what was waiting for me. I listened in silence, my hand clutching the small, disguised satellite phone in my pocket, my lifeline to Chloe and Dr. Miller. Sterling Heights was as it always was, magnificent and cold. I was taken to a private VIP suite to prepare. A nurse came in with a surgical gown. She smiled. "Don't you worry. The procedure will be very quick. Dr. Miller is the best there is." But I saw a flash of pity in her eyes. When I had changed, Ethan came in. He took my hand and kissed my forehead. "I'll be waiting for you right outside. Be strong, my love." It was his final kiss, and it tasted of betrayal and death. As they wheeled me toward the operating wing, the long, sterile corridor echoed with the squeak of the gurney's wheels. My heart hammered against my ribs. This was it, the final battle. I didn't know if I would come out of it unscathed, but I was no longer afraid. I thought of Leo, and of the daughter I was about to meet. They were my strength. For them, I had to win. The doors to the operating room swung open. The surgical lights were blinding. I saw Dr. Miller and his team, all in scrubs and masks. He approached me, his eyes, visible over his mask, conveying a look of steadfast resolve. He gave me a slight nod, a signal only I could understand. Then I saw the other team enter. They were also in scrubs, but a cold aura emanated from them. Leading them was a man with shifty, cruel eyes. It had to be Dr. Vance, Eleanor's anesthesiologist. He came toward me, holding a syringe. "Hello, Mrs. Carter. I'm Dr. Vance, your anesthesiologist today. Just relax. I'm going to give you the anesthesia now. You'll just have a nice, deep sleep." I looked at the syringe, at the clear liquid inside. I knew it wasn't just anesthesia. It was the poison they had prepared for me. I closed my eyes. "My baby girl, please watch over your mother." I knew the gates of hell were opening, but I also knew that beyond them lay not death, but the light of justice. I was ready. The curtain was finally about to fall on their hideous play. The operating room was frigid, filled with the steady beeping of the heart monitor and the clinking of metal instruments. I lay on the table, blinded by the surgical lights, feeling the tension suffocating the air. The two medical teams faced each other like armies before a battle, one fighting for justice, the other paid to commit a crime. Beginning anesthesia. Dr. Vance's voice cut through the silence, cold and artificially professional. He approached with the prepared syringe. I felt the sharp, cold prick in my arm as the needle went in. A wave of drowsiness began to spread through me. Before I slipped into darkness, my eyes found Dr. Miller's. He stood calm and silent, but his eyes told me, "Don't worry, everything is under control." I sank into a deep, dreamless sleep. When I regained consciousness, the first thing I heard was the sound of a baby crying. My baby. She was born. I struggled to open my heavy eyelids. Through a blurry haze, I saw a nurse from Dr. Miller's team holding a tiny infant, wrapped in a white blanket. "Congratulations, it's a girl," the nurse said. 7 pounds. A girl. I smiled weakly. But my joy was short-lived. I heard Dr. Vance's sharp voice. "The baby is showing signs of mild respiratory distress. She needs to be moved to the NICU immediately for observation. Hand her over." 2 nurses from his team moved to take the baby. This was it. Their play was beginning. Respiratory distress was just the excuse to take my daughter for the secret marrow harvest. "Wait." Dr. Miller's voice boomed, blocking their path. "The baby's condition is perfectly stable. Her APGAR score is 9. There are no signs of distress whatsoever. She isn't going anywhere." "What do you mean by that?" Vance snarled. "I'm monitoring this case, and I see a problem. The safety of the director's grandchild is paramount. Do not interfere." "I am the lead surgeon," Dr. Miller retorted, "and I am telling you the baby is perfectly healthy. You will not take her anywhere without my and the mother's consent." The tension snapped. The 2 teams stared each other down. From the table, I summoned all my strength. "My baby," I whispered hoarsely. "Don't take my baby." Vance sneered. "What do you know? You should be more worried about yourself. The patient is showing signs of an anaphylactic reaction to the anesthesia. Her blood pressure is dropping fast. We need to administer epinephrine, now," he signaled to his nurse. "Prepare a dose of Epi-Stat." I froze. He was doing it. He was faking a medical crisis to kill me. That syringe would contain a lethal dose. "Stop!" Dr. Miller roared. "The patient's vitals are completely normal. What are you doing?" "You're the one causing a problem, Miller," Vance shot back. "You are deliberately delaying emergency treatment. If anything happens to the director's daughter-in-law, you will be held fully responsible." He had backed Dr. Miller into a corner. The nurse from Vance's team advanced toward me, holding the syringe of clear liquid. This was the end. I closed my eyes. "Chloe, where are the police?" Just as the needle was inches from my arm, a deafening crash echoed through the room. The steel doors of the OR were thrown open by a powerful force. A swarm of plainclothes officers, guns drawn, stormed in. "Nen PD, nobody move." The room fell silent. Vance and his team stared in shock, their faces drained of all color. The syringe dropped from the nurse's hand and shattered on the floor. A lead detective, followed closely by a stone-faced Chloe, stepped forward. The detective held up a tablet, its screen streaming live footage of everything that had just happened, captured from multiple angles. "Leo Vance," the detective said, pointing at the anesthesiologist, "you are under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder. Everything you just said and did has been recorded." Two officers immediately cuffed a stunned Vance and his nurse. The rest of his team raised their hands in surrender. The trap had sprung. Outside in the hallway, Ethan and Eleanor were pacing anxiously. Hearing the commotion, they rushed toward the OR. "What's happening? What's wrong with my wife?" Ethan yelled. The doors opened again. Two officers led a handcuffed Dr. Vance out. Seeing him in cuffs, Ethan and Eleanor's faces turned ashen. "What are you doing? Why are you arresting our doctor?" Eleanor shrieked. The lead detective stepped out and looked them both in the eye. "Ethan Carter, Eleanor Carter, you are also under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder and insurance fraud." He held up a thick file. "We have everything. The $20 million insurance policy, the audio recordings of you planning this, the falsified medical records for your grandson. It's over." Eleanor collapsed to the floor, wailing, "No, it can't be. My plan was perfect." Ethan stood frozen, his face a ghostly white. He looked past the detective, into the OR, and saw me being attended to by nurses. He saw the baby girl crying in Dr. Miller's arms. He understood. He had lost. "Sarah, you," he seethed, his eyes blazing with hatred. "You tricked me." I looked at him, feeling no fear, only a calm, quiet victory. "I didn't trick you, Ethan," I said, my voice clear and strong. "Your own greed and cruelty destroyed you." The cold steel of handcuffs snapped around his wrists. As they led him away, he was still screaming, "I'll kill you! I'll get you for this!" But I wasn't listening. I was watching as my beautiful baby girl was brought to my side. I reached out and touched her soft cheek. Tears streamed down my face, tears of joy, of relief, of liberation. The storm was finally over. The case at Sterling Heights Medical Center created a seismic shockwave, shaking both the medical community and the public to their core. That very day, newspapers ran sensational headlines: "Prominent architect and mother plotted to murder wife on operating table for $20M insurance payout," and "Criminal ring at luxury hospital exposed. Savior sibling plot uncovered." All the evidence we gathered, the OR video, the audio recordings, the insurance policy, the ex-wife's tearful affidavit was made public. A wave of outrage swept the nation, demanding the harshest possible punishment. The empire the Carter family had built on lies and money crumbled overnight. Stock in Ethan's architecture firm plummeted. Partners backed out, projects were frozen. Sterling Heights went from a paradise to a symbol of corruption. Ethan's father, the powerful hospital director, was suspended pending an investigation into his role in the cover-up. A respected dynasty was reduced to ruin. My daughter and I were moved to a secure wing of the hospital. The first few days were a blur, but every time I looked at my baby's angelic face, I found new strength. I named her Anne, hoping her life would always be peaceful, free from the storms I had endured. Chloe and Dr. Miller were my rocks. Chloe handled all the legal matters, while Dr. Miller looked after our health. He told me that after the trial, he planned to resign and open a small, private practice. He was tired of the politics and deceit. The trial began a few weeks later. I didn't attend. I couldn't bear to see their faces again. In the courtroom, Ethan and Eleanor were pathetic, haggard shadows of their former selves. Faced with irrefutable evidence, they turned on each other. Eleanor wept that she had done it all for the love of her grandson, Leo, and that Ethan had masterminded the whole thing. Ethan, in turn, blamed his mother's ambition and greed, claiming he was a weak man who had just followed her orders. Their pathetic attempts to shift blame only earned them more public scorn. In the end, justice was swift and decisive. Ethan Carter was found guilty of conspiracy to commit murder and fraud and was sentenced to life in prison. Eleanor Carter received a sentence of 25 years. Dr. Vance and the other accomplices also received lengthy prison terms. When the verdict was announced, I was holding Anne. I felt no joy, no triumph, only a profound sense of relief. The immense weight I had been carrying was finally lifted. "It's over, my love," I whispered to my daughter. "We can start our new life now." But one battle remained. Leo was still fighting his illness. Without his family's dark resources, his future was uncertain. But I would not abandon him. He was an innocent child, Anne's brother. He deserved to live. Our story had captured the nation's heart. A charitable fund was established for Leo's treatment, and thousands of strangers donated and sent messages of support. Then, a miracle happened. The National Marrow Donor Program found a perfect, unrelated donor. On the day of Leo's transplant, I stood outside the surgical unit, holding Anne's hand, my heart filled with a nervous hope. The surgery was a success. Leo's recovery was long, but he responded beautifully. For the first time in his life, his cheeks were rosy. He could run and play without gasping for breath. Watching my two children laugh together in the yard, their happy shrieks filling the air, I wept. They were tears of pure, unadulterated happiness. After everything, I hadn't lost anything. In fact, I had gained it all: my freedom, my peace, and most importantly, my two healthy, thriving children. I sold the townhouse and all the luxury goods Ethan had bought me. I donated a significant portion of the money to the charity that helped us and other children with life-threatening illnesses. With the rest, I bought a small house in the suburbs with a garden full of flowers. I returned to writing, the passion I had set aside. My life was no longer glamorous, but it was filled with meaning and laughter. The hurricane had passed, leaving behind a clear blue sky and a brilliant rainbow, and I knew it was the most fitting reward for a mother's courage and unwavering love.